Hey, my name's TC Burr. Welcome to Yet, a podcast created to encourage you to get your goal or idea out of your head and into reality. On this podcast, you'll hear stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas to help you write your book, start your business, launch your podcast, or whatever it is you hope to accomplish. Because it's not that you haven't done it, it's just that you haven't done it yet. Hey listeners, it's TC. Welcome to Yet. This is episode 0, and I am so thankful to have you listening. So this is going to be scheduled to launch a day or two after Christmas 2023. So either the 26th or the 27th. And you might be thinking right out of the gate, episode 0, that's a little unorthodox. And you're right, it is. But the title of this episode is You Make the Rules. And so in that light, I wanted to do something that was a little bit maybe out of the ordinary. Think of this as bonus content. I'm still planning to release episode 1 on January 1st. And in that episode, I'll give you a little bit more of a formal kind of intro of who I am and how we got here and kind of what my vision is for this podcast. But for this episode, I wanted to take a little bit of time and just talk about something specific, which is whether you are launching a business, writing a book, starting a podcast, or any other goal that you're trying to achieve, I want to underscore right from the gate that it's your thing. And because of that, you make the rules. And I mentioned that this episode is going to go live shortly after Christmas 2023. So if you're listening at that time, you might be thinking like this part of the year is always a little bit weird, at least for me. I remember as a kid, you would have all this anticipation, all this excitement all month long building up to Christmas. And then Christmas comes and Christmas goes. And then on the 26th and kind of the rest of that week, you're just kind of like, okay, that was it. That was Christmas. Christmas is over. And now we look forward to the New Year's party and the college football bowl games and all the things that happen with the new year coming up. But there's that weird in-between week where it seems like, for all intents and purposes, the old year is gone, but the new year hasn't quite started yet. And it was always just kind of an awkward in-between week. So I wanted to launch this episode and provide a little bit of bonus content for you to help you get through that week. And also to help talk about how we can prepare for the year that's coming soon. So you make the rules. What does that mean? Well, first and foremost, I think it means that nobody else can tell you how to do your thing. As you get started with your side hustle, your business, your book, you're going to get a lot of feedback. You're going to get a lot of interactions with friends and family and people around you. And that's a really good thing. I think you should be seeking advice, feedback, reviews of the things that you're doing, whether it's your writing or your business plan or whatever. But understand that at the end of the day, you are the one who is in the driver's seat of your thing. And so there's a reason why conventional wisdom is conventional in its wisdom, because there are things that have worked for years, for decades, when it comes to how to do a business, how to write a book. But at the end of the day, not all of that is going to apply in your specific case. So do your research for sure. Network, talk to people, gather feedback, get as much data as you can in when you're starting your thing. And so for this podcast, for example, I burned up Google and YouTube trying to figure out what type of hardware should I use? What type of software should I use? How do I do an intro? Should I do a guest interview thing or a solo thing or a group hosting thing? And there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? So at the end of the day, I listened to a ton of good advice from some really smart people. And I ended up taking a lot of that advice. But there are some things that people told me that I considered. And then I realized, you know what, for what I'm trying to do, for the vibe that I'm going for with this podcast, maybe it doesn't make sense to take on every piece of advice that I've been given. And that's okay because, again, it's your thing and you make the rules. By the way, that's also going to be true with this podcast. So just so you have an idea of what I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to have 2 main types of episodes, at least for this first season of Yet. There's going to be some episodes that are what I'll call solo episodes. And so that is what it sounds like. It's going to be me taking a topic or an idea, maybe a question that I've received on Instagram or some other channel, and I'll just riff on it for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Those are going to be solo episodes. And then we're also going to do a lot of interviews. So if you've seen any of the preview videos that I've sent out, I'm talking to a lot of people. So when I first started writing my book, I shared that out with people, just people that I know in my network. And as I did that, I realized there were so many people who were starting businesses, writing books, doing podcasts, doing all these kind of amazing things. And I had no idea. So a lot of these people that I'm going to bring on are just friends of mine and contacts that I have in my social network, in my work networks, just kind of in the spheres of influence that I'm in. And they're doing really amazing things. And so you're going to have some solo episodes and then a lot of interviews where I'm just sharing stories. And that's really all I'm trying to do with this podcast is share stories and hopefully encourage people who are either in the process of doing something or you're thinking about getting started. I want to encourage you that you can and you should. But as you hear things on these shows, whether it's me or a guest that you hear on the show, my hope is that a lot of the insight and advice and inspiration that you hear on this show is going to really resonate with you and help propel you into success in whatever area it is that you're trying to succeed in. But I recognize that maybe not everything you hear is going to connect directly with you. So feel the freedom as you listen to this podcast, chew the meat and spit out the bones. Like if there's something that maybe doesn't connect with what you're trying to do, that's okay. Like thanks for listening and maybe share it with someone else who might connect with that piece of advice. But if there is something that you hear from me or from a guest on the show that you think, you know what, that they might be onto something with that, please run with it. Take that idea, tweak it, make it your own. Send me a question if you want to clarify or you want help getting started. That is literally like one of the main things I'm trying to do is help and encourage people as they're getting started. So chew the meat, spit out the bones, take what's helpful and what resonates with you and use it, leverage it toward your success in whatever the goal is that you're trying to accomplish. So here we are. We're at the end of 2023. We're looking at a new year. And so I have a couple of things that I want to encourage you to do. Again, I'm going to drop episode 1 and probably episode 2 and maybe even episode 3 on January 1st. So please follow the show and plan to listen on those. But I have a couple of encouragements that I want to leave you with before we cut the recording for this episode. So, and you can kind of think of this as podcast homework, which I know, again, maybe not the norm, and you can choose to do it or not. I won't know if you don't do it, and I won't be offended if you don't. But if you would be interested and you would oblige me in this, I do have some encouragements of things that I would love for you to do before you connect and listen in to episode 1 next week. So first, you've got a few days before New Year's. Maybe you've already got some New Year's resolutions or some goals that you want to tackle in 2024. But even if you don't, what I would love for you to do is come up with a list of things that you might want to accomplish in the next calendar year. So if you're listening to this at the end of December when it drops, that's 2024. But if you pick this up in June 2024 or, July 2027, just think about maybe the next 6 months or the next 12 months from wherever you listen to this and jot down some ideas, whatever your collection system is. So for me, I love sticky notes. I put so many ideas on sticky notes. I've got them covering my walls. I've got them covering my desk. Like anything that I think I might want to do, I've written it down in a sticky note. Maybe that works for you. Maybe you've got a spreadsheet or put it in your phone or whatever, but write it down, put it down on paper. And at this phase, there are no bad ideas. So any goal that you think you might want to accomplish, and you can break them down into categories, right? Like you can have like a business goal, a fitness goal. If you're a writer, maybe you've got a writing goal. And just list as many of those goals as you can, things that you might want to do. And then narrow it down. Pick maybe 1 to 3 of the ones that are super important to you that you really would love to say, when I look back at this list a year from now, if I make progress toward these 3 goals, I will feel like this year has been a success. So kind of audition your goals, narrow it down to those top 3, and then break those goals down into small, repeatable actions that you could take on a regular basis. Think like a daily thing that you could do that would move you closer to that goal. So when I first entered into this kind of world of self-improvement, advancing side hustles, like this whole world is relatively new to me. But when I first got into it, there were a lot of reasons, a lot of kind of catalysts that pushed me into it, which I'll talk about in a future episode. But one of the big things was I read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And maybe you've read that one. If you haven't, I would commend it to you. It's really good. And in that book, James Clear recommends using what he calls a 2-minute rule. So you're trying to create a habit that you can do, something that you can accomplish in less than 2 minutes, that if done over time repeatedly is going to lead to lots of progress and accumulate toward becoming the type of person that you want to be. So here are some examples that James Clear lists when he talks about some of these habits. So maybe you've got a goal that you want to be a writer. He says one habit that you could track daily is to journal 1 sentence. Or maybe you want to read more. You could read 1 page, meditate for 1 minute, do 1 push-up, stretch for 1 minute, write something you're grateful for, make your bed, wake up or go to bed by a certain time, weigh yourself, floss your teeth, say I love you at least once, put all the dishes away, take a walk outside, walk the dog, or my favorite, call mom. Hi, mom. Notice he says that most of the items on this list can be completed in 2 minutes or less. Make your habits so easy that you can stick to them even on the hard days. Here's the magic of creating a habit. If you do something consistently, day after day after day, most of these habits are going to compound. If they're good habits, they're going to compound and lead to really amazing results in your life. So, full circle, homework number 1, come up with a list of the things you want to do and as many ideas as you can come up with of goals that you might want to accomplish in the next year. Narrow it down to your top 3 or less, and then break those 3 down into small, repeatable things you could do on a regular basis. I'm not even asking you to start doing those things yet, but just kind of do that work of thinking through whether it's, like I said, sticky notes, whiteboard, Excel sheet, whatever you got, and then narrow it down and come up with those daily repeatable things you can do. That's number 1. Number 2, if you've liked what you heard today, I hope you will follow the show. I want to continue to inspire and encourage, and I've got some great guests and some great content lined up for this first season. So follow the show Yet on the podcast platform wherever you're listening to this. Follow Yet Podcast on Instagram. And then the third thing is share it with your friends and email me any questions that you have. I would love to engage in a two-way conversation. So if you're listening and you've got an idea of maybe a question that you've got, an idea you think you'd like me to talk about, or maybe you know someone who's doing something amazing and you think they'd make a great guest on the podcast, let me know. It is yetpodcast@gmail.com. Send me a note. I would love to hear from you. And that's it for today, episode 0. Thanks so much for listening. Join me next time for episode 1, where I'll share a little bit more about my background and how it is that I got so excited about setting and achieving goals. Hey, thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, follow the show and share it with your friends. If you've got an idea for a guest I should interview or a topic I should bring onto the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can send it to me on Instagram at yetpodcast or send me an email at yetpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks a lot. Until next time, keep working on your goals, and I'll see you soon.